What's up, Texas? Hi. Wow, what a big room.
Thank you so much for joining all of us today to talk about your career and your feature debut, Flamin' Hot. But because we are at South by Southwest in Austin, I think it's very important to begin with a mention that you are a native Texan.
Yes.
Growing up here, did you always know that you wanted to be in entertainment?
Oh God, no. No. I come from a family of educators. So my mom's a teacher. Yes, teachers!
Education!
Underpaid, underappreciated. And my aunts were teachers, my sisters are, engineers, so I was the disappointment in the family by becoming an actor. No, it was one day, I went to college and I graduated college and I was in a pageant. I couldn't afford my senior year in college. It was like my financial aid ran out, they stopped Pell Grants at the time, and a friend of mine said, you should enter the scholarship pageant. And I was like, what is that? I know it's hard to believe now, but I grew up as the ugly duckling in my family. In Mexican household, it's called La Prieta Fea, the ugly dark one. And I know, and that was my mom. And so I didn't grow up with this idea of beauty. Like in my family, it was very important to be the smart one. And there was like a competition in my family to be the smartest one. And so anyway, I entered this pageant. And in the pageant, if you won, you got like tuition and books and a stipend. I remember there was 5 of us as finalists, and one of the questions was, what do you think about cloning? Remember when they cloned that sheep Daisy? What was her name? Dolly. And the girl next to me, she goes, what the f is cloning? And I go, well, I beat this one. I mean, I beat her. Because I know
4th, here we go.
I got 4th place for sure. And then, but I ended up winning it, and in this prize package was a trip to Hollywood. Yeah, and I was like, oh, I don't want to keep doing this beauty thing. I needed the money to finish college, and so I ended up taking that trip after graduation. One day it was like, I think I'm gonna be an actor. Like that, like one day. Never thought of it, didn't know how to do it, had $22 in my bank account, and I stayed in LA. I just never came home. Yeah, it's weird.
I've heard a lot of origin stories, and not a one has mentioned Dolly the sheep. I have to say, and I'm so happy. What were some of the obstacles that you came across that maybe you weren't anticipating?
That I wasn't Latin enough. That was weird, because I didn't grow up speaking Spanish, but I looked like this, and so I got to Hollywood, and I would go for the Latina roles, and they were like, could you do it with an accent? And I was like, well, I don't have an accent. And then I would be like, you mean, they would be like Rosie Perez, that's what they always said, who's like a New York, very specific dialect. And I was like, I can't do that accent. Then I would go for Spanish speaking stuff, and I didn't speak Spanish, but I was like, I could memorize it. And I remember auditioning, and then the casting director goes, you don't speak Spanish, do you? I was like, no. So I got a lot of Italian roles, and I was like, done, Eva Longoria. I was like, yeah, yes, I'm Italian.
What role does climate storytelling play in our fight against climate change, and how have you guys seen that role shift over time in your careers?
I think I'm the elder on the panel, so I'll speak first. I made my first climate change film in 2010. It was called Cool It, and it actually had millions of dollars behind it, opened theatrically, and nobody wanted to see a climate film at that point. They had seen An Inconvenient Truth. People were terrified. They didn't know what to do. Should we change our light bulbs? Like, should we, measure our toaster? We didn't, it just seems insurmountable. If we'd done the things that were in Cool It, we wouldn't be in the position we're in now. And so I think all of us on this stage are just trying to put forward positive stories that will empower us to actually go and, in our case with the Future of Flight and the Amazon series, it's to join the Climate Pledge. And all of you who have companies, you can go back to your companies and say, we need to join the Climate Pledge. It's something that we can be a part of. We can beat the Paris Accord by 10 years and reduce, go to net zero by 2040 is all that is the commitment.
So I think that, climate stories in general, they're honestly, I think, how we change the perspective of people in power that have the power to change things for the better. I was just down in Panama working on another doc project with a conservation biologist who played a huge part in pushing the Panamanian government to acknowledge the rights of nature. And it was a great example of how one person can go and, via their relationships and their storytelling ability, impact great change, immense change on a governmental level, which is really what we need.
I mean, I'm extremely optimistic in that, these stories are something that is reflective of a more receptive public. I think people they really want to hear these stories. They really want to know what they can do. And I think the more we have of this kind of filmmaking it's a huge audience. It's also a changing paradigm, in this world, which I'm positive and optimistic about.
Yeah, we've noticed the same from a scientist perspective. When I was training as a scientist, it was kind of like, just look at the data, don't get emotional about it, and there's still, you have to do that in a lot of places, but I've come to see the huge value in the storytelling and talking about these individual bears we've tracked throughout their lives and working with artists like Max and Kay to tell these stories in different ways. That's the heart of it. I can tell you facts all day about polar bears, they're pretty cool. But really, it's going to be if your heart loves the polar bear, that's when you're going to want to act to protect them, and so that's what we need to do. Everything we do to protect their Arctic sea ice habitat, which comes down to shifting to cleaner energies, it's all good for us. Whatever we're doing for them, we're doing for us. Our futures are entwined, and so I do think they make an incredible symbol. And who doesn't love? I mean, those cubs, they're so cute. They get attention,
So the climate pledge is 400, I believe over 400 companies strong now, and it's a pledge to beat the Paris Accord by 10 years in becoming net zero in terms of carbon emissions. And I got involved because I grew up in a family that was an aviation family, and I just made a film called Last Flight Home about my father, who founded an airline, and the first decade of my life was just on airplanes. And I was approached by Amazon. It's a 6-part series. It premieres April 4th. And it's a future forward. It's looking at the future and how we can actually live in a way that is much more in sync with the planet. Just like your film, it's about bringing human stories to the fore. That's what I think is the only way out of this. The only way we can help as filmmakers. And it's extremely important because it gives people a feeling that they can get involved, that there's a career route. There's so many kids right now that don't know what they're gonna do with tech and all the changes when they're coming out of college. And there's so many, this series alone will inspire them on so many potential jobs, that can actually, and they're full of despair. I mean, there's, a huge anxiety epidemic among kids because they're looking at the planet that's dying and they feel like they can't do anything. So it's very important, this work.
And Kishi, in this film, we see you at this intersection that you live your life in, it seems like. You're at this intersection of education, performance art, and activism, and you talk in the film about creating music you have this responsibility to, it heals, inspires, and elevates. And I was wondering if when you're making that music, what that process is like. Do you start with the vision, the message you want to send, or is it the way you layer everything? Is it one component at a time? How does that come together for you?
Thanks. That's a good question. I think my biggest strength is deadlines. So when I have a hard deadline like South by Southwest, honestly, it's about creating a beautiful song. Because a song, if you spend enough time, my process is I spend a lot of time thinking about what the song will be like. And I think once I started giving myself enough time to craft this song, then I felt at this point I was comfortable presenting it, and I recorded it. I also went to Jose Gonzalez concert in the summer, and I was very inspired with his chill vibe. So
yes.
But anyways, thank you for this
Art
opportunity.
inspires art. I love that.
Started with a well, and it started pretty well. All around a fragile bed that I couldn't even spell.